Claude Lanzmann was born in Paris to a Jewish family that immigrated to France from Eastern Europe. He attended the Lycée Blaise Pascal, a high school in Clermont-Ferrand. He fought in the Resistance and was married to Angelika Schrobstorff, a German Jewish writer. Lanzmann's most renowned work is widely regarded as the seminal film on the subject of the Holocaust. The Claude Lanzmann Shoah collection contains over 220 hours of footage and includes thousands of original 60mm film reels with corresponding separate sound tapes, negative logs, interview summaries, and transcripts. Lindsay Zavell and Leslie Swift from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington explain, the Claude Lanzmann Shoah collection at the USHMM is one of the richest audiovisual sources of Holocaust history. This archive of rushes consists of an extraordinary testimony and location footage that was not incorporated into the monumental 9.5-hour film Shoah, which waves together dozens of testimonies to describe in meticulous and devastating detail the step-by-step machinery of the destruction of European Jewry. In the heart of Shoah are testimonies of survivors, as are also at the heart of the Shoah collection. In her unpublished interview with Claude Lanzmann, Paula Byrne talks about her childhood in Lodz when the Nazis invaded Poland.
Panama City, Biran, première.
We also learned something about the way how Lanzmann conducts his interviews.
Be quiet, nothing happens, we didn't start yet. I just want to make you nervous.
You want to make me nervous. Thank you, million.
To lose your control.
Hmm?
To lose your control.
You did already.
Losing control as precondition for testimony.
You know.
Okay, let's start now. I think we have to start from the beginning, from the entrance of the Germans in Lodz.
Yes.
Okay, if you can describe what was the situation, what were your feelings at the time, and if you knew already what would be at stake, if the family had an idea.
Well, we had an idea, but certainly not about how it will happen. We didn't have an idea how bad it will be. See, the war broke out September 1st, 1939. And we knew that it's coming, but it was a surprise anyway.
Zawell and Swift tell us about the history of the Shoah collection. 3 large shipping containers containing 2 tons of film materials arrived at the USHMM Collection's storage facility on January 21, 1997. The delivery contained such diverse materials as film negatives, sound tapes and rushes, the corresponding summaries and transcripts of the major interviews, and handwritten logs of the negative rolls. Our first priority was to unpack, inventory, and arrange the elements, which included several types of original materials. Besides survivors, Lanzmann also interviewed some historians as expert witnesses for his film. Hal Hilbeck is the author of the seminal book The Destruction of the European Jews. In this interview with Claude Lanzmann for Shoah, Hilbeck discusses several aspects of his research, including the culpability of the German railways in the deportation process of European Jews, as well as the significant roles Adam Chernyakhov and Rudolf Kastner played in the genocide of the European Jews.
Burlington, Hilbert, première.
Well, Hal Hilbeck, I would like to know why, studying the Holocaust, you took such a deep interest in the transportation problem. Because as a matter of fact, we know what happened. We have the result. We know that 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazi, and we know that at least 2/3 or more than 2/3 of these 6 million had been shipped with railroads, with trains, in order to be killed when they were shipped in the killing centers. It seems that the result is enough important in itself, and I would like to know, and as a matter of fact, it is a question that you ask to yourself when you start your beautiful article on the railroad problems, why should one be interested in this?
Well, from the start, that is to say 30 years ago, when I began the work, I was interested not merely in the result that everyone knew, but in how that result came about. And for this reason, I set myself the task of finding out the various means that were employed by the Germans for the destruction of the Jews. In those days, the only thing to do was to look at documents coming through Nuremberg, and I did do that. But after a while, even after being in Alexandria, Virginia, which at that time held the largest collection of German documents, I became aware of a very peculiar gap in the picture. There was nothing, almost nothing, about the railroads. And the very fact that this material was missing in such large collections that contained a great deal of information about the party, about industry, about the army even, about many other sectors of German life, that very fact made me a stubborn searcher for material about the railroads.
Another historian interviewed for the film is Yehuda Bawa. Yehuda Bawa, an Israeli scholar, talks about how he first became involved in the study of the Holocaust and how he tries to strike the balance between emotional involvement and objectivity.
Yehuda Bawa, first of all, I would like you to tell us something about yourself. As an Holocaust professor and researcher, were you personally involved in one way or another in the Holocaust?
No, not at all. I was not involved at all in the Holocaust itself. In fact, I arrived in Palestine before the Second World War with my parents, and I spent a very calm and quiet childhood in Israel, Palestine, before the State of Israel. I got interested in the Holocaust because I found that this is the central event in Jewish history. Certainly in modern times, probably much longer than in modern times. And as I wanted to be a Jewish historian, that's what I did.
And where did you come from?
I came from Prague, Czechoslovakia, when I was 12 years old. My father was a member of the Zionist movement there, and we got out on the last day before the Germans came in. In fact, we came out on the day that the Germans came in.
In 39?
In 39.
But you could have been involved in the Holocaust.
I certainly could have been involved. In fact, the Nazis boarded the train as we were driving out of Czechoslovakia, and the Czech engine driver crossed the Polish border without the German agreement, and that's how we were saved.
Yeah. And when did you start to work on the Holocaust? Can you say something about your experience in this field from a human point of view?
I think what made me deal with the Holocaust was a long discussion I had with Abba Kovner in about 1964 or 1965. I was doing Palestinian Jewish history, Zionist history at that time.
Something completely
different. And I began dealing with the Holocaust because you can't avoid it. I mean, you cannot not deal with it. And he told me I was wasting my time. So I asked him why. He said, because if you want to deal with the really important problems, you've got to deal with the Holocaust. So I said, I'm scared. So he said, well, that's a very good point to start.
As Well and Swift explain, the scope, variety and detail provided in the accounts of these witnesses to the Shoah continue to inform the work of all of us who study Holocaust history, film, memory, testimony and trauma, and the intersection of these and other academic fields.
Elias dies.
Remain silent. When you want to go, you go very naturally.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.